What happens when you go through life checking off the boxes for success and it still leaves you feeling unfulfilled? Hey, I'm Chewning, host of Ever Forward Radio, and on today's episode, I'm talking with Brian Pannuzzo, the Wolf of Wall Street 2.0. This is someone that was doing just that, going through life, checking off all the boxes for success, but still feeling very unfulfilled, and a few things in his life kind of left in shambles. So he started asking the right questions, made his own definition of success, and in fact left a lucrative career on Wall Street to come out west here to California and completely rebuild his life, save his marriage, and help others along the way. Welcome to Ever Forward Radio.
3, 2, 1.
Brian, what's up, man?
What's up, bro?
Welcome. Glad to have you here.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Last time we met, two times before. We had San Diego and then the Nomad Hotel.
Yes.
And we're just kind of catching up about life since in real life kind of died down a lot. What's it been like for you? We were just talking about how kind of mandates and in real life stuff has just been like such a blessing now when you do kind of get that lined up.
It's something I took for granted, man. We were just discussing, I hadn't been training. The gyms are closed here.
Yeah.
Found a gym that's open. And so I did not realize how much fitness was an anchor in my life, important to me, because I always just moved my body a lot. I wasn't like, I got to go get this training session in.
Yeah.
I always just sort of did it. It was part of my life. And I didn't, I moved across the country a little over a year ago. It's a big part of my story. And, I have 30 plus year relationships back on the East Coast, and I have tremendous relationships here, but it's certainly, as you know, being somewhat new to the West Coast as well, it's not exactly the same, Yeah. And so I found myself, even as recently as a few weeks ago, like elevated levels of anxiety and a little depressed and stressed out and like not sure why. And when I sort of evaluated all of it, it was like, oh wait, all these things that I sort of introduced in my life over the last several years, coaching, community, accountability, getting back into better shape, like they're all gone, and I'm preaching this stuff, as a coach now, and I'm not practicing any of it. So it's been interesting, during this we're in month 8 or whatever now of our
month 542,
542 of this never-ending saga. And it's like, it really has started to become very clear to me what I need in my life. I need mandates, I need fitness, I need movement, I need community, I need accountability, I need coaching, I need all that stuff. So, there's a lot of silver linings throughout the last, through 2020, as much as people want to cancel it and,
like what?
And do over.
Which one for you?
For me, realizing, we were talking about this young man that I'm, that I'm going to have on my podcast that's coming soon. Like, this kid has leukemia. He was diagnosed with cancer in May. And so, my family's healthy. I'm healthy, right? Like, you think that you got it bad. You think that, there's so many things going on in our world that needs to change.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if we could all just slow down for a few moments every day, or much more than that, and just appreciate how good we do actually have it. Because this is my opinion, despite how bad everything appears to be, this is still the greatest time to be alive in the history of our civilization, right? Like,
because we're alive.
Because we're alive.
Yeah, because we're alive, and we're living in a modern digital age where we have the luxuries to kind of like find ways to pivot and to still survive.
For sure.
Right?
Yeah. For sure. No one was complaining about gyms being closed in the 1918 pandemic. So
they have gyms back in the 1918 pandemic?
I don't think so.
Damn. You're so true, man. You're so right. It's not to keep beating a dead horse. I mean, this is still on everybody's mind of just what has happened to society, what has happened to my day-to-day ritual, what has happened to my life, my health, my happiness, my business. Is that kind of like a normal process for you when you check in with yourself to kind of see what's kind of on par, what's not? Is it, or this is missing? Is it usually when something goes missing in your life, does that kind of have a ripple, or is it just, needing to add more stuff?
Yeah, I think it, a big part of my structure, my coaching, how I work with people, and in my own life is auditing, right? Like I had to put on ways to get here from where I live.
Yeah.
And so the GPS gives you the destination, but it's of no use if it doesn't know where you're starting from. And so I think many of us, all of us can benefit from hourly, daily, weekly, monthly audits. And so to answer your question, I started to ramble there a little bit. Like,
no, that all makes sense.
It took me some time to go, what's missing, and I even though I preach it and practice it, I sometimes forget to do it myself. So it's more just taking stock of like, where are you currently? And, there's a very big component of like self-evaluation versus self-judgment, and not
good point. Yeah.
Not muddying the waters between the two.
Yeah.
And so it's very easy for us, I think especially men, to go into the self-judgment, quadrant and really start to kick yourself and have regret and drag yourself through the mud. As much as like you and I can get together, I'll pick you up when you're down, you'll pick me up when I'm down, we'll both leave, and then we'll beat ourselves up for the shortcomings that we see that we have. So to answer your question, like it's usually a part of my process, but just like everybody else, I go off track and I find moments where, I'm sort of off the rails, off the wagon, not part of my structure, my routines, my habits. And, things get a little bit on tilt and you go, what the heck's happening? Why?
Yeah.
And you try to evaluate it and you course correct.
Yeah. But then it's going back to that sense of awareness, that basic infrastructure of not needing to spiral out of control and just knowing that, like you said, you are off tilt. And then you've done things in the past to get back on tilt. I mean, you didn't start completely out of whack, all these things, just chaos and haywire. You had some stability. And I say everybody, we have stability, and then things happen. It's just a matter of not needing to just believe and go with that chaos and just continue to spiral, but just like, look, just come back to center.
Yeah. I'm a big believer. I talk a lot about financial terms. I mean, I had 20-year bond trading career, Wall Street career. So my brain thinks in basketball and in finance. And so the concept of compound interest, the accumulation of your habits when you are investing money throughout your lifetime is really the most powerful phenomenon in savings. And I relate that to our health and wellness. You can relate it to all aspects, our physical health, our mental health, your habits, your routines, your strategies. Like, the debts that I accumulated throughout my life were not done in months. They were done in years, And so, we oftentimes end up sort of on this path of doing something a certain way. And it takes us a couple years sometimes to realize that, well, shoot, this isn't really where I want to be. So that going back to that audit process for you, whatever that is really powerful because it can pattern interrupt and it can break a cycle for you and be like, this isn't exactly what I intended it to be.
It can be an awakening.
Yeah, I had the right intention, but it's like I love golf. Golf is a very precise sport. You can spend an entire season just starting to do one thing incorrectly in your swing, like little by little by little. All of a sudden, towards the end of the season in October, you're a complete mess. You can't hit a golf ball and you have no idea where it came from. And so that's sort of the same concept of like, unless you're spot checking yourself, unless you're have a coach. That's why coaching is so important in all facets, all aspects of our lives, right? We're all coaches in some capacity and we all have coaches, right? It's just to have another set of eyes, to have somebody say, hey man, like, it seems like you're digging a hole there. Like maybe put the shovel down, If you want, step number one, I've always been told, a very great friend and coach of mine, step number one to get at any hole that you're in is to stop digging.
Stop digging.
Put the shovel down.
I love that, man. Yeah. And I know, kind of getting more into your backstory, I know that was a big part of where you were before you had this ability and these kind of rituals and systems to get back on tilt. Tell us about that hole you were digging, man.
Ooh, how long is this podcast?
We got time.
Okay.
We got time.
So, as sort of efficient as I can be, I spent 20 years predominantly as a high yield bond trader. I was a Wall Street guy. I grew up in New Jersey, just outside of New York City. I was a basketball player, athlete, typical alpha male, all boys Catholic high school, scholarship basketball player, Wall Street training program. I checked all the boxes for your typical cocky, douchey, successful guy. And, over the course of about 15 years, built a life that was, quite frankly, unbelievable. I followed some friends.
What do you mean by unbelievable? Like, paint that picture for us.
So, beautiful house, beautiful wife, great kids, great possessions, country club, vacations, nothing crazy, but just
like typical forms of success most people think about, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, cool.
Absolutely. I checked every box for, hey, the eye test, the smell test, is this guy successful? Right. And 6 years ago now, I had a series of events that happened in my life in a very short period of time, maybe in a 3 to 6 month window. My mother was diagnosed with ALS and passed away.
That's right.
So I know we share that commonality.
Yeah, my father.
So from diagnosis to death was only about 8 or 9 months. Now she ignored symptoms for about a year. So
wow. My father was like 15, 18 months.
Yeah. So
18 months.
So as you know, those last 6 months or so are really horrific.
Yeah.
Obviously on your loved one that's passing, but on the caretakers, on the immediate family, right? And so, for us, when I look back, it was a little bit of a blessing in the sense that my mom had to go to the hospital like in early November. And that's when they trached her. She lost her voice. And then from there, it was like she never was really out of some sort of hospital care, whether it had been a long-term care facility, the ICU, whatever. She passed away January 5th, 2015. So it was about 2 and change months of hell for us, right?
Damn it, I'm so sorry. I mean, again,
I know. So then thank you very much. And so like those 8 months for me, it was basically a very great summary of how I lived the rest of my life. Meaning, I was sort of casually dependent on alcohol, on substances, on whatever drug I could find.
Was that because of the diagnosis with your
No,
mom?
No. It was just how I dealt with stuff. It's how I dealt with a tough Tuesday at work.
Gotcha.
I came home, I had 2 glasses of wine, I ate a gummy, I had a Percocet, whatever was in front of me, whatever was available, I would dabble. I was a very well diversified guy. Never got too far off the rails. You never really knew unless you were very close to me. There's been very few moments in my life where you'd be like, wow, Brian, you gotta go to bed.
But just like seeking that escape.
Yes.
Like numbing out.
Disconnection. I grew up my parents were high school sweethearts, grew up in a very loving family, but we didn't physically show affection. We didn't challenge each other. Things that we said. My mom told the same stories for years and years and years. My wife came into the picture. She's like, is someone going to tell your mom that she told the story 2 months ago? I'm like, no, that's not what we do. We just sit here and we listen.
You just say, thanks, mom.
You just say, okay. So, we were, now that I'm starting to understand where patterns and belief systems and structure comes from your life, I was sort of taught that, you just sort of go into your own separate rooms and you're there and you stuff it down and you don't
deal on your own.
Deal on your own.
Yeah.
Then I'm a competitive basketball player. Now there's tons of teamwork and camaraderie and communication that needs to go there, but there's still very much the sack up and handle your stuff,
man up, show up.
Then I enter Wall Street, which is the ultimate, like stuff it down and check your feelings at the door environment. Right. So I dealt with those 8 months the same way I dealt with the rest of my life, which was always physically present, never missed anything, but typically not all mentally there, mentally checked out or mentally sedated in some form. And my wife knew what was going on. She didn't challenge me on it, but she knew what was going on. Shortly.
Why not, do you think? Not to interrupt your story, but why not, do you think?
I think it was, something that she realized was part of my life, and I was a great person and a great husband and a great father. And she was sort of willing to accept this sort of, big flaw that I had. I don't know, quite frankly, that's actually an amazing question. I've never asked her.
Other forms of you were talking about how you were checking off boxes of success and being Brian, you know, maybe that was also perceived on her end of like, hey, he's checking all the boxes for being a husband.
Could come with the territory.
I just need to deal with it, you know,
Yeah,
which
maybe.
a lot of us do, especially in relationships.
Right.
I'm not saying it's right, but
I agree.
Could be.
I'm not sure if she was aware maybe of some of the severity of it. And then at some point it reached a boiling point for her. And so my mom passed away. As you know, I started to become much more aware of the links between chronic disease, especially neurological diseases in our lifestyle.
Yeah.
Right. My wife then delivered a pretty frank message to me. We had at that time, we had a 5-year-old and a 6-month-old. And she basically said, like, if we didn't have these 2 kids, I'm not sure that I'd be hanging out. This isn't exactly what I signed up for.
Damn.
And then also during that kind of 3 to 6 month period, my son was super into Legos, as most 5-year-olds are, which
they're the best.
Until you have to put them together.
Or you step on them in the middle of the night.
Can't wait if you have a kid. I'm going to send you like a 1,000-piece Lego set when your child is like 3. Like, Daddy, can you put this together?
Go.
4 minutes later, Daddy, is it done? Every other minute, is it done yet? Then you finally get it together after 2 days, and they break it within 30 seconds. So anyway, sorry.
That's why I asked you to put it together, Dad, so that I can destroy it. Yeah,
Lego PTSD. So my son asked me to get down on the ground, and I could show you here, but I tried to go shins on the ground, knees flexed, butt on my heels, and I couldn't. And I was in such pain trying to be on the floor with him, on my knees, on my shins, that I had to come up to the couch like this. And it was fine because I was playing with him here, but it really affected me in the moment. And I started to flash back to all these stories that I've told myself. I'm a big guy. I'm 6'6". I played competitive basketball for a long time. I worked in a very, very sedentary culture, Wall Street. And then to boot, I had to commute each way. I'm in the car. I'm on the desk all day, long days, right? Then to boot, I would flash across the desk and see a guy who's probably one of the most successful people on the desk get up out of his chair and moan and groan like, oh, my back, So it's like we had these examples of lack of health equating to success all around us. Like, oh, that guy makes $2 million a year. Like, look at him. He's limping. Like, that's what I'm supposed to be. And so I just told myself this story that like
I'm willing to accept that.
Correct. Yeah. Correct. So I told myself a story that this was the price I had to pay to be successful. And, all of these things sort of happening at once, obviously was a massive slap in the face. My mom degrading and passing away was something that was not self-inflicted and didn't accumulate over time. But my behavior and my wife's displeasure with me as a man, as a husband, as a father, and my physical ability or lack thereof to go do things with my son didn't happen in a course of months. And that's where I sort of get to this accumulation of our behavior. It accumulates both ways, baby. You know what I mean? Like for you or
good
against
ways
you.
and bad ways.
And so, I started to make some changes in my life. I instantly got in better shape, lost weight because I thought if I looked better, my wife would love me more, which is ridiculous. But that was the first thing I thought of. What I was in search of after I figured it out was the connection that we had when we first met. And I was in much better shape then. And started to find some new passions, some new hobbies, instead of taking home research reports and quarterly company, filings and stuff like that. I was taking home,
She wasn't interested in, cuddling and looking at spreadsheets all night.
She still does not know what I used to do. Cuddling, I got a little bit, but not during that time. I was in the doghouse. But I started to find a passion for health and wellness, nutrition podcasts, and like I started to change what I consumed. And as I did that, I found people that also started to delve into this whole mindset thing and what's that and personal development and growth. And I changed, my mindset from like, I'm this tough guy to, I don't know shit. I don't know what I'm doing, and so started to explore a lot of these things in my life, saw some of the benefits of these changes that I made, how it impacted my marriage, how it impacted my relationship with my kids, how it impacted the relationship with myself. I didn't necessarily need to sedate as much. And it's been a continual work in progress for me. Like, why am I feeling what I'm feeling right now? Like perfect example. We were just talking about my anxiety a couple of weeks ago. I for a couple of days, I went right to drinking and smoking and not moving my body and only made it worse.
Well, I think you're describing the first like several weeks for quarantine for like a lot of people. I mean, absolutely. I felt like it was a snow day. I was just like, oh, cool. Yeah. Crack open another bottle of wine. I'm just going to chill, watch movies. And then about week 2 hit and I was like, yo, I can't do this. You know,
Correct.
Huge disservice in every way.
My a good buddy of mine that I used to work with has a great saying: "There's no booze like snow booze." Snow days are great days to get banged up.
Which is another, not to go off tangent too much, but like, I mean, you know, now even with your children being at home, pod schools, no really, a lot of states are still not having in person. Like, do you think is there ever going to be a snow day again?
New York City's not having snow days this year. They announced that.
They're like, screw it, go to Zoom. Like, oh my God.
That's tough, man. That's
a whole generation's not going to know what snow days are. That blows my mind.
There was the Barstool guy did that. That was an amazing post. It was like, now you've gone too far, COVID.
you took our snow days.
You've taken everything away from us. This is where we draw the line. No, I mean, the impact on our kids for this stuff is going to be really interesting. I do as much as I can. We do as much as we can to keep social interaction. My son's still playing sports, and my daughter is seeing kids. I mean, we're fortunate that we've taken the steps to make sure that we are healthy. And we don't have comorbidities. And so I don't know what beliefs are for people out there. And I'm not saying that COVID's not something to be worried about, but
I'll make the argument that will never hurt you.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
No matter what's going on.
I believe that. And I'm not going to, for someone who says you're absolutely wrong, I'm not going to, that's your belief and that's cool. But
improving your health and decreasing your comorbidities, never a bad thing.
Correct. And is also scientifically proven to not, to work in your favor during this. So we're doing all we can to keep some sort of normalcy, but obviously all of our lives are affected. That's the understatement of the century. But yeah, for them, I mean, look, as much as my son and my daughter didn't like going to school and would sort of fight us on a daily basis, they would go back to school in a heartbeat right now.
I bet.
If it opened up,
Wow. I want to go back to something you're talking about earlier, of that moment when your wife came to you and was like, look, if it wasn't for these two children, I don't know if I would be here right now. And the picture you were painting up to that point, which I can relate to, I'm sure a lot of people can relate to, is, well, like, first of all, you're probably like, screw you. What do you mean? Like, I'm providing, I'm here. I'm not like doing all these things that we perceive are bad for that role.
Sure.
Like husband, spouse, friend, father, neighbor, son. That's a very challenging moment where a lot of people, the easy way out, the ego way out is like, well, screw you. Like, what else do you want from me? But you actually went the other end of the spectrum and you're like, I don't know shit.
Yeah.
Like, why? How?
The key word you said there was ego. The first thing that I went to was defense, like you said, and my first response was like, how could you be so inconsiderate? My mom just died. Like, let me have a moment. But like, that's this, again, going back to stories we tell ourselves about me supposed to have constant knee, hip, ankle, back pain. That's a story that I told myself. I was living the same life I was living. I just kind of tweaked it a little bit higher on steroids a little bit for when my mom was sick, I wasn't doing anything different than I used to do. Maybe the intensity, frequency, and duration were slightly higher during that, last several months. But it's not like I picked up a massive alcohol or drug habit to cope for 2 months. Like I was just relying upon the anchors that I had in my life at that time.
Right,
so it was very crystal clear that I needed to make some changes. So it wasn't, there was a moment or two of like, how could you be so hard on me right now? Like, and then like, when I kind of got quiet and thought about things, it's like, all right, do you want to massively affect your life for the rest of your life? Or one thing's already happened. Your mom just passed away. Like let's try not to have a divorce in the same year. That's not really a great string of events for
I would agree.
For a calendar year, right? Yeah. So
probably not a great track record. Yeah.
Probably not. So, so I just sort of went to work and again, I did it not knowing what I was doing. It was a huge component of trial and error there. It was more just like, I got to get her to love me again. So let me get back into shape.
Wow.
So I didn't go on this deep dive of personal development. I found that as an afterthought.
That was going to be kind of like a second tier part of that question was, who did you do it for? Was it for her or for yourself? Because I think at that moment, a lot of people will kind of realize, I want to do this so that I can keep this relationship, keep this person, or like you have that kind of awareness moment for yourself of like, wow, for me as a successful human being, I need to change for myself. And that kind of answered that question. It was because of that relationship and the love that you had. And then, like the self stuff comes secondary. Yeah,
that's well said. I definitely, didn't do, I will say I did do in the moment, I did do the analysis of like, my kids deserve better. My wife deserves better. you know?
Yeah, of course. I'm sure.
There was certainly some reflection there. It wasn't all just like, I can't believe everyone's turning on me, you know, typical like addict stuff. There was moments where I'm like, I'm better than this.
Okay.
You know? I'm better than this. And
I love that.
So what do I do about it? I turned to what I knew because, you know, as popular as personal development and growth and all this stuff, masterminds, when you could still see people, like as popular as that stuff's become over the last kind of 5 years, if you tried to pitch that to me as a means of becoming a better person, you know, I'm 42, at the age of 32, let's call it. So a few years before that, maybe a little bit less popular 10 years ago, but even so, I would have just laughed you out of the room.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Dude, you tried to tell, you know, an athlete, a competitive guy who made a bunch of money, Wall Street, like all signs point to get out of my face with your advice, you know?
Get your woo out of here.
Exactly. So, and still to this day, I still have a little bit of trouble with it. You know, I still have a little bit of trouble with it, but you know, I have the experience now of experiencing it, you know, and knowing what it's done for me. And so I think like for people, I push them all the time. I'm like, just go do something. Like, go do it. Go take a small action. Yeah. Like feel what it feels like. Like if you don't like it, I would argue you should probably push through that discomfort a bit and give it a shot, but like see what happens. Like you may actually like it. You know? Yeah. And so as weird as like, you know, like I still have my Wall Street buddies and my high school buddies and stuff, like, you know, those relationships will never change where they're like, dude, get out of here with yourself stuff. You know, like, and I know it's coming, so I can play to it. And I love it. Secretly, I love that because I love the locker room stuff. I've realized what it's done for me. So it's never not going to be a part of my life. You know, there'll be moments where I sort of forget, like I did a few weeks ago. But like,
oh, you mean you're human?
Yes, exactly. Very human, very flawed. But I'll always know to come back and be like, okay, this is, you know, these are the foundational pillars of my life. I know that I have to check these boxes within those, and they're not always going to be steadily fed the same diet, you know, constantly nurtured at all moments in time. But you have to know when one of those parts of your life is not getting enough nourishment. And you have to then, even if you can't fix it in the moment, you have to set up a plan or at least communicate to, let's say it's your relationships, your marriage. Like for me, if I just would have thought about this ahead of time, work's going to be a disaster for the next 3 weeks, right? I know it's coming. I see it's coming, right? Like communicate that to my wife. Hey babe, like this is going to be tough. I'm going to be working longer. I'm going to be out with customers. I'm going to be stressed as heck. Like I'm going to try to not take this out on everybody else but myself. But when this is over and here's where I see the light at the end of the tunnel, let's get away for a weekend. Let's plan a date. Let's do this. And that I didn't do enough. And so that I see that makes all the difference in the world for people, you know, that I now sort of work with or help or give that advice to, like, hey man, just like communicate that you're going through some real shit with your wife, and you know, you're going to need a little bit of time, and here's your plan. Here's what your hope is afterwards. Because the whole concept of like work-life balance is crap. Like it's
when did balance get thrown in to like be an accurate description of what we all should be striving for? It's a total farce, man.
It really is.
It
really is.
It's just, what are you willing, like the knowing going in to a give and take system. Yeah. That's really what it's been.
Yeah. I think if everything is in balance, you're probably not working hard enough. Work harder, dude. Get yourself out of balance a little bit, you know, but coming back again, that's where the audit comes in. It's it's obvious. I've said it now 10 times already. Like it's a cornerstone of my life. Like figuring out what's happening, like, and what's working for you. And maybe the audit is all good. Okay, cool. Let's feed it more, you know, like how can I make a couple of adjustments or tweaks or add, but like, you're always going to find something for the most part that's a little bit on tilt. And then it's just like, okay, what can I do to take a couple small steps to make it a little bit better?
I agree. Yeah. I agree, man. You said something that is like, I think about this all the time. And honestly, in the last probably 1 to 2 years, I've experienced this a lot. You were talking about how when you go visit your friends back home or your basketball guys, or you kind of have these like the locker room talk, you called it. And like, you recognize it. And I won't say like you recognize that I have to change who I am depending on the person I'm around. Right. But when you go through growth, when you go through an experience, especially when you start going into like, you know, the mindset and you change, just like you recognize that you want to keep growing, not so much like an abandonment of who you are, but you want to keep growing. But then you get back around people who don't, or maybe aren't. And it's just, you love them, like you went to high school together or like college friends. I had this experience recently. I was at a wedding, and some of the people there, you know, very, very small wedding, of course, a COVID wedding.
Sure.
Even those people, the groom was like, yeah, I mean, I love you. Like he didn't say this to them, but he's like, you know, I love these guys, but they're just so not my people anymore.
Interesting.
And I experienced that as well. Coming out here now for 2 years in LA, and just the massive amount of growth. And I had already been in the woo a little bit of personal development before, but now it's just like no, like I talk to some people, even just as something as simple as like an Instagram caption or a story. I'm just like girlfriend, bro, like you are just still 5 years, like you're still the same person. And it's so hard to say that and not sound like a condescending asshole.
Yep.
But it's just like, we shouldn't want to be the same person, right?
I agree.
So how do you show up for those people that like you have love for, you've experienced so many things with, but like, I hate to say this, but like come back down to that level, but like still keep space for them and just be with them because there's a value exchange, but also like recognize that you've grown.
Yeah. It's hard, man. I found myself disassociating with those people for a period of time. And when I say disassociate, I don't mean like a divorce or a breakup. I just mean like choosing consciously to spend less time.
Yeah.
So, you know, for me, and I would say a lot of times they didn't even know that I was making that decision. It wasn't like an invite and I was like, nah, man, I'm good. I can't make it. Like I realized that I was seeking them out a lot of times, you know?
What I was going to say is a huge indicator for like how much is really you giving way more in the relationship. If you, not sorry to cut you off, man, but like, if you decided that, and then I've done this and you realize it's been 6 months and this person hasn't contacted you, you're like, well, probably wasn't that great of a relationship anyway.
Sure.
You know, if they don't even know I'm gone, then, you know, what the hell?
Yeah. So it was more just choosing consciously to spend a little bit less time, you know, and then, you know, ultimately having a conversation with people. Like, look, what I've realized in all of my transformation is that the discomfort that I've felt, that I've perceived, here's a good example. When I started to change like the way I moved throughout the day, meaning like I didn't just sit on my ass all day for 12 hours. I brought some bands in and did some band pull aparts once an hour. I got up out of my chair and I did a lap around the trading floor. I might do a couple of lunges if I was swamped.
Some push-ups.
Some squats, whatever. And so for a year or so, maybe 2 years even, I was so self-conscious and did not want to do these things. I lived 2 different lives. Outside the office, inside the office. And again, stories. I told myself the story that I was the weirdo, right? And it was like, I can't do this stuff in front of these guys, you know? Or another example would be—
Which is really you saying, I can't be me.
Can't be me.
I can't be me.
Other than like a couple of guys who always will have their own insecurity and not think enough about themselves that they need to deflect and say, you know, something silly about you. Every single person was like, started out with, what the hell's that?
Yeah.
What are you doing over there?
Yeah.
To, you are clearly in much better shape than me. So maybe you know what you're talking about, you know, to like tap on the shoulder, make sure no one else is listening. Hey man, my shoulders have been killing me. My back is killing me. Is what you're doing on an hourly basis? Does that help? Does that help you?
Yeah.
Like, can you show me some of that stuff?
Why is getting help sometimes so like taboo? It has to be so hush hush.
I mean,
it's so wild. Man.
It is. It's still to this day. I'm like, you know, it took me a number of days to be like, all right, I got to reach out to some friends and maybe schedule some stuff.
Yeah.
We want to choke it down and do it ourselves. It's the manly way to do it. It's, you know, it's like kind of the old school. Like even, I mean, like actually, if you think about it, I was just about to say it's the old school way to do it. Old school way was tribes and teams. And like, so that's not even that. I don't know. It's evolved into, you know, in our culture, in our society that, you know, we're supposed to have it all figured out. We're the leaders, we're the protectors, we're the providers. Like, I'm not supposed to show, you know, I'm not sure I cried publicly when my mom passed away because I thought I needed to be this like stoic guy who, you know, kept it all in check for my family.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, through my father's funeral and that whole time I was home on emergency leave. I was still active duty at the time. Anytime I would get tearful or emotional, I left. Like I right there with you, man.
Yeah.
It's like, I was the oldest brother, now like the quote man of the house, and I was army chase. I was like, oh no, like they can't see me cry.
Yeah. Even now, when I I've actually realized that I'm kind of an emotional guy.
Oh, I'm with you, man. Yeah.
And I have
You want to cry after this?
My first urge is to choke it down. I'm like, don't you do this? Don't you do it? And so, yeah, you know, I think it's like, look, we're constant. We've been fed our entire life, like, be a man, you know, so be a man. Like, what does that even mean? I don't know. I don't even know what that means.
I would love to be a man. Teach me.
Yeah, teach me to be a man. I've never been taught. I really have not been taught, you know, and I love my dad to death, but like, we didn't have that, like, rite of passage bond. Like, here's the moment that, like, you're a man. Here's some things that you need to know. Like, it just wasn't his style, and that's okay. But, like, you know, so I was sort of like thrown out there to figure it out myself, and I didn't figure it out. Like,
Can I share something with you on that point? Actually, so my dad, he was an Army guy himself, and when him and my mom split, I was like 5, 6 maybe, and this is how I know that I'm in the right relationship with my wife, and like how I know I'm acting in accordance with that model. I think a lot of guys, you know, we model our behavior, our life success from our father, right? Whether or not we had that rite of passage or we did. I'll never forget this. I just noticed when my dad, he met my stepmom very soon after. And then from about like 6 or 7, she was my mom. I never saw a man get like so weird and drop his guard and emotional in front of anyone, much less, you know, a woman, as he did that person.
Interesting.
And like that for me has always been my kind of go-to, my rite of passage for like really what the hell is love? Because it makes you do weird shit, but also just like dropping the armor.
Yeah.
And so for me, that always was like my rite of passage with him was, I mean, him and I had like the best relationship, very communicative, and, you know, best friends. And, you know, I could come to him with anything, for anything, good, bad, ugly, whatever. And, yeah, that was always it for me. It was just kind of like dropping the armor and like the relationship, but more so like with the self. That's what I'm really trying to say. And like what I keep hearing in your story is, as you kind of come up against these friction points, these bottoms in your life, transitions in life, it's like not who do I have to become, but like who do I choose to be?
I like that.
And I mean, whether or not you had that role model or not, I mean, like there was some kind of influence there, some kind of something, because I mean, where else would you have gotten that concept from?
Sure. Yeah. And I see it. I see so much of myself. My son is a spitting image of me. He's long, he's lanky, he's blonde hair, blue eyes, athletic. He's just a sweet kid. Yeah. His favorite 2 words are good and fine. Like I can't get a damn word out of him. How you doing? How's school today? We're good. It's good. Yeah. What's going on? Fine. And so, you know, we laugh and it is funny. And, you know, but like, it's a little concerning for me because shit, like now that I'm learning, like his operating system is pretty much set. He's 11. Like he's right. Yeah. Right. Like as now that we know, like so much of what we learn and believe through most of our life is ingrained in us at such an early age.
Like 3, 4 at about 12.
Yeah.
3, 4 at 11 or 12.
So I really want to make sure that he doesn't become me. I want him to be me because I think I turned out okay. But like certain aspects of me, like where I stuff it down, I feel like I can't share. I got to just like, you know, just take on this burden for myself because I know obviously what that resulted in. It resulted in, you know, me having moments of crisis in my life. And so, you know, it's interesting to see his behavior and how he's wired and his DNA. Yeah. And me try to now correct maybe some of the things I couldn't choose because it's maybe something that I just gave him. But 5 years ago, I was a different person and I was operating differently with him. And I don't, you know, specifics I can't point to, but maybe I did pass along some ways that I coped, some ways that I dealt, right? And so, and they watch, man, like there's no better mirror than your kids. Like
I've heard that a lot.
Oh, dude, it's crazy. It's crazy. And so like, talk about like, you know, being held accountable. I mean, you want some, I tell guys that I work with, you want some accountability. Just tell your 7-year-old or 6-year-old or 8-year-old that you're trying to do something. You know, they don't give a damn about your feelings. Like, Daddy, you said you weren't going to eat that. What are you doing? You know?
Yeah. And then they
Daddy, why are you drinking?
Yeah.
You said you weren't going to drink this week. You know, they don't care about your feelings. They don't care you had a tough day. So we got off on a tangent there, but yeah, I think it's just like, you know, really making sure that, you you just constantly check back in with yourself, cause I mean, I go off the rails all the time.
That checking in with yourself at that level, was that the catalyst? Was that what led you to make such a radical transformation, literally go from one coast to another, from leaving Wall Street to now working and not only going through the work yourself, but helping other people do the same thing?
Yeah. So, I realized that I needed to make a lot of changes in my life. I found some new passions. I would say I replaced some unhealthy vices for some healthier ones. Right. And then realized that, I could help other people, and that I actually found some value in it and passion and purpose. And, I realized that I was going to work every day, and I was just in the middle of two other privileged, D-bags who made too much money, all three of us, trying to move a piece of paper from one place to another. And can we all make a little bit of money, while we do it? And, I would come home, and my wife had left a marketing career to pursue a passion of hers, which was helping other women get pregnant, right?
Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah.
So we did 10 rounds of in vitro, of IVF for two kids. And she was a biology and a chemistry major, and she taught here at Santa Monica High School. So she was a teacher, she had a science background, and then she had a real world application and experience. Damn. And so she went to like a business coach before I even knew what a business coach was. I'm like, you're doing what? You're going where?
You're going where with our money?
And 2 days later, she comes back. She goes, they tell me I should be a fertility coach. I'm like, I don't know what that is, but if you want to try to figure it out, go for it. And
said like a good husband.
Yeah. And so, I'd come home, I'd be like, babe, I had a great day. Traded a lot of bonds, made some money. She's like, yeah, I had a good day too. I helped two women get pregnant who haven't been able to get pregnant for 5 years.
Damn.
I'm like, and I'm going to go into my hole now. So, coming home, like trying to make some changes in my life, and then realizing like, shoot, I made a decision about a career effectively at 17 years old when I decided to be a business and economics major in college. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm 40 years old, and I'm generally on the same path because of a decision that I made when I'm 17. Now, it wasn't a bad one, but did I have the next 23 years of my life in mind when I made it?
No.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
So, and then I started to think like, am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing? I certainly don't love it. I also didn't hate it. And I think that's a funny spot for a lot of men to be in. And
it's a duality. It's a dichotomy.
Your life's not on fire. Like, I think that's one of the most dangerous places to be in. Cause I get guys who come to me now, and they're me 5 or 6 years ago. I wasn't grossly overweight or had terrible blood work, but some part of their life is in a crisis. Yeah. And mine was my marriage. Some guys, it's their health, but I also get guys who are like, you know what? Like, nothing is that bad yet, but if I stay this way for the next 5 years, I see it happening. And so what most people do, it's amazing awareness on their part, right? I'm like, dude, you rock. Cause I just put my head down until I could not put out the fire. Yeah. It was burning too much. And so I think like a dangerous place for a lot of people to be is in that spot of being like, everything is okay. Nothing's, my wife and I, we don't really have sex that much anymore. We don't go out that we're constantly bickering, and my job's okay. I don't really love it, but like, what else am I going to do to pay for all this, around me, that this lifestyle that you've built up? And, I don't see my kids as much as I want, but it's the price I have to pay. So, getting into this sort of,
I hate hearing that. Like, I know you must get all the time, and
dude, it's I think it's 90% of men, man.
That it breaks my heart. And every time I hear that, like, what else am I going to do? I have to accept this. These are the sacrifices I have to make in order to ABC, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no, that has been one of my biggest realizations over the years of just like, you don't have to accept anything.
For sure.
You damn sure shouldn't have to accept anything other than greatness for yourself and of yourself.
Couldn't agree more. And I will tell you firsthand, and you've experienced it because you changed, career paths and things like that. It's obviously a very hard hurdle to get over.
Sure, of course.
Right? Because I did the same thing for 20 years. Like, what else am I going to do? Do you know how many times I told myself that? What else am I going to, if I'm not this, what am I?
Because what's the alternative? When people think that, especially, maybe it's changing now, but like at 20 years into a career, you're like, oh shit, like, what am I going to do? Go back to college and go to a trade school? Like, we think that we have to start all over.
Correct.
And it's just not true.
It's not true. It's not true. There's so many ways to do it. There's the way that I did it, which is, start a side hustle and start, before you even start a side hustle, just start doing something that you love.
Yeah.
If there anything in your life that you would do for free, cool. Because a lot of times, there's become this sort of phenomenon of you got to find your purpose and your passion. And you may be a perfect example of somebody who's actually living out something that they were born to do and truly love. But there's a realistic scenario, I think, for a lot of people that a podcast could be their passion. And maybe it doesn't pay the bills, but maybe they start to change the way they view their 9 to 5 as the means to allow them to do charitable work, to have this amazing platform that they can talk to people and share.
Do anything that is purely fulfilling for you and provides happiness for you, I can guarantee you that is going to spill over into your life. Maybe a month later, maybe a year later, but indirectly or directly, it will have immense value.
Correct. The last year and a half of my career was potentially the happiest I've ever been in it. Because I think I sort of saw my exit, meaning I was like, okay, there's a way out of here for me. But I changed my perspective of what I was doing.
How so?
Meaning I understood that it was a means for me to live a life of abundance and have certain things that I wanted to have. And then also, I can go do this thing on the side and get some fulfillment out of it. Now, I eventually turned that into a career, and I left a 20-year career.
Talking about coaching.
Coaching, yes, coaching men. And so I turned it into a career, but it very well could still be a side hustle for me, or just a passion project. Or how it started was, like I said, people tapping you on the shoulder. Hey, man, it looks like you lost a bunch of weight. Like, hey, you're playing basketball again. I haven't seen you play basketball in 10 years,
Wow.
Like, what's going on, and like, oh, could you help me with some of this stuff?
Hey, I see you living a life that I want for myself, but didn't think was possible until I saw you.
Exactly. And so, it may never get to a point where it's your primary source of income, but it could, like I said, completely change the perspective of you getting out of this grind. You know, many times I talk to guys I used to work with, and it's like, what's going on, man? How's it going? I'm like, I just grinding. It's a grind. I'm like, what a fucking grind, dude? You use the word grind 6 times in the last 30 seconds. Like if all you think life is and work is a grind, that's what you're going to get. You're going to get a grind. Like if you think it's an amazing opportunity to connect with people and to live an abundant life and to all these woo-woo things that we're talking about,
it's so
you're going to get at
It's
least
so
a little bit of it. You're going to get at least a little bit of it,
I mean, just think about it. It's simple association. Like if we hear and see that if I grind, I succeed. Life is a grind. Work is a grind. All these things like a grind, a hustle, like that just doesn't paint a happy picture. I literally think gears grinding on top of each other, and just somehow that amount of friction for X amount of time produces a desirable result.
Yeah.
Or what if it was like, I'm designing my own machine. I'm building every gear, every cog. I have this wonderful end result in mind, and I'm the grand designer of every component. Like build it out from reverse, you know?
Yeah, I hope any Wall Street guys listening to us are still staying with us after that. No, but
like, damn, Brian and Chase have been in LA for too long.
Yeah, I can hear my Jersey guys going, oh my God.
All my DC friends are like, I don't get it.
Yeah, okay. What did you say? Can you repeat yourself? No, you're so right, man. You're so right. Like it's your perspective of things. How you see it is a reflection of ultimately what you get. And so to come back to, the changing of the careers and stuff, like I walked into an environment every day where I was like, wow, my wife is actually creating a life for herself that she truly loves. She, as successful as her business has become, she'd do it for free. I mean, she might not spend 10 hours a day doing it for free, but she'd do it for free. And so that's a great question that a friend of mine asked, who ultimately sparked this entire thing for me. Was like, if you had to do something for 3 to 4 hours a day, you had enough money to live, but you had to do something 3 to 4 hours a day, what would you do? And I didn't know the answer for the first 10 seconds, and then it hit me. It was like, I really enjoy helping people. I've seen this transformation that I made in my life, what it's done for my health, my relationships, my connection with myself, with other people in my life. And I've really enjoyed helping them when they ask me. And so he was like, you should explore that. I'm like, okay, cool. And
Dude,
a month
thank
later,
God for that person in your life.
I did nothing about it. And a month later, he went, how's that thing going? Like, what do you mean? He's like, the thing. I'm like, oh, I actually have to do this. It's like, yeah, that's the whole point. So, and then you take small steps, and you audit and you fix and you correct and
Yeah.
you try and you put effort in, and 10 years later, you're an overnight success.
Exactly. So true, man. Well, dude, Brian, kind of getting towards the end, thanks again for coming on. It's been so great having you here. And just, it's wow. When I have conversations with people, podcasts, a lot of times it's a few things here and there, like, okay, cool, like key, tangible, new point. But honestly, it should be the most reassuring thing for the viewer, the listener, for us. Like, look, true success comes when we finally get to the truth for ourselves. And that's just, look, just find a few little things that make you happy that you can consistently do and replicate. And like, it will ripple into everything you do in life. And you may make a living out of it. You may not. You don't have to, but just like, look, when you work out of and towards fulfillment and just being you, then like you're set.
I couldn't have said that better myself. I had success in my life. I created a lot of success in my life. I'm at a point in my life now where I'm after fulfillment. I'm after, moments with my children that I didn't have for 11 years. I'm after
comfortably getting down on the floor with your kid.
I'll lay down with you right now if you want to put some Legos together. Taking a lunch break with my wife, taking a walk midday, and I'm not saying that is the definition of a successful life.
But it is for you.
It is for me.
Right,
and if you have to, if your definition is being in that office every day, that's great. But like, what else are you doing in your life to move the needle, from an emotional, spiritual, mental, whatever perspective? Because like at the end of the day, we all come to the reckoning that, what we've been doing, just doing this one thing, succeeding in one
I like that
aspect.
word. It's a powerful word.
One aspect of our life, ultimately, I can't tell you how many men I speak to where it's like, I didn't plan for it to be this way. It just happened. And I regret not doing anything about it sooner. But now that I've realized it, I got to do something about it. And I think we all get to that point at some point in our lives. Some of us, for me, it took about 35 or 40 years. I got guys who are in their early 30s, and I got guys who are in their late 40s or 50. They're like, shoot, I love what I've created, but I need more.
Damn, man. And that's what you do. You help them get more of them, really, and just copy and paste yourself, your truth. Definitely gonna have like all your stuff down in the show notes for people to connect with you. And you've got a podcast rolling now too, where you kind of expand on these topics, solo interview, and just more of this kind of curriculum, right?
Thanks to you. I have a podcast.
Success Lift, baby.
Success Lift podcast. Yeah. We're a couple months in. I've had amazing conversations with people. It's designed to tell stories of successful people in mostly corporate America. Me 5 or 6 years ago who
former version of yourself.
Absolutely. Achieved this level of success to where, we sort of painted this picture of me on the outside visually to everyone. I sort of passed the sight and the smell test that I had this guy who had it all going on, but in a lot of aspects of my life, sort of underneath the layers, it was totally on fire, burning, not in a good way, not like the roof is on fire. like it was actually on fire. And
like
so
it's going to burn down.
Yes. And so it's meant to just share those stories. And I can't tell you how many, people have heard other guys that I've had on and been like, that's my life. Your life is a little bit like mine, but that guy too, and we're all dealing with a slightly different version of the same thing.
100%.
So yeah, the podcast, the Success Lift is the name of my program. I coach men whose career success has cost them aspects of their life, their health, their marriage, their relationships, their, with themselves, with their kids, with people around them. So,
which is such a powerful concept. I like to expand on that is like, wow, like think about that. What has success cost you? We think of success as just like reaping the rewards, reaping the benefits, but it's not a balance, right? Again, like we were saying earlier, it's, I get this, but because I had to give up that.
There's a concept in economics called opportunity cost. And so right now we've chosen to connect and do this podcast. We've both given up the opportunity to do other things.
Sure.
And so going to the gym, eating healthy, spending a little bit more money on, organic groceries, whatever, all those things cost us something in the moment, but doing nothing or doing something else has a cost. Another concept in economics is inflation. Things that we don't do today will most likely cost us more in the future. So you don't want to work on your relationship now. Divorce costs a lot more 15 years from now. You don't want to work on your health right now. Chronic disease costs a lot more 20 years from now. And so those concepts, because that's the way my brain works, is how I relate it to people. It's like, there's always a cost. That was the first thing I learned in economics 101. There ain't no such thing as a free lunch.
My dad always said the same thing. He said, Chase, I don't care what you see on a billboard, no matter where you go, who says it, nothing is free.
That's right.
Nothing.
That's right. There's always a cost. So, it's like getting people to realize the decisions that you've made have gotten you to a certain place in life. You've given up other things for that. Yeah. And so are those things worth it? And that's an honest question. For some people, the answer is yes. For most people, the majority of the people that I speak to, it's like, no, not all of it's worth it. I'd like to give back some to have some over here.
Nothing is free is one of the phrases my dad said, and ever forward was the other one.
Amen.
Thank you. And it's pretty powerful that like you have also experienced like that same loss. I mean, I'm so sorry for that loss, but it's just because of ALS, it is such a rare thing. It's a very rare connection when you realize somebody else has gone through that. Yeah. And so those two words are what he said my entire life, and definitely what he lived in his literal last breaths and stuff. It's the whole meaning for what I do now. But I'm curious, what does that mean to you? How do you live a life ever forward?
It's I've been thinking about this as you've been talking. It's such a better way to say take action. Just keep going. Just keep going. Like, forget about the wagon that you fell off. Forget about the tough weekend that you had. Yeah. It's your ability to get up, dust yourself off, and keep moving. Right? Like, cool. You had a tough weekend, or you had a tough stretch, or a month, or I had a tough 15 years. What are you gonna do about it now? And so to me, that is just a very eloquent way and a powerful way to say, take action, keep moving forward.
Love it, man. Thank you.
For sure.
Thank you.
For sure. Thank you.
Yeah, well, Brian, that's a wrap. We're going to have all of your stuff. And like I said, definitely check out the show, Success Love Podcast. Check him out in the work that he does. Like, if the former version of you is shining through, like, this is your guy, for sure.
I appreciate you. I appreciate all the help that you've given me.
My pleasure, man.
You've allowed me to sort of get my message out to the world. I'd still be stuck trying to figure out how to edit podcasts without you, my man. I appreciate the friendship that we've sort of struck up over the last year.
Likewise.
And look forward to having it grow.
For sure. Beautiful, man. Cool. I'll wrap it there. Thank you so much. Well, what'd you think? If you enjoyed this content, it would truly mean the world to me if you just simply shared it out with one person. And if you really, really liked it, well, you know what to do. Just go ahead and hit follow, subscribe. I'll make sure you never miss another episode, another great piece of content that helps you live a life ever forward.